What's up? And welcome to another episode of Director's Talk. It's the end of February, which means the ending of Black History Month. And before we kick this off, the last week, I wanted to bring some notoriety to my favorite director, the GOAT, Spike Lee. And not just bring him up in a conversation, but compare him to some other great directors and do a true comparison about some things you might not have known. There's no secret. He's my favorite director of all time. He had the most influence of me of all directors. Now, I'm gonna go back and do a little timeline and compare them. The greatest of all time, a lot of us agree is probably Steven Spielberg. Since the 70s up until now, he's made some of the most influential movies of all time. There's no doubt. There's no disputing that. But his influence over me is lackluster compared to Spike Lee. Now, growing up, hey man, I seen Jaws, I seen E.T., Close Encounters of the Third Kind, all the Indiana Jones movies, Jurassic Park and things like that. There's no doubt Steven Spielberg changed cinema forever, you know. He didn't do a whole lot for the Black community. He tried with The Color Purple, but the Blacks turned against him. We didn't care for that shit. So Steven Spielberg, you know, sorry, you know, keep that shit to yourself. You tried, stay in your wheelhouse, leave these Black films alone. But he's probably one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest, depending who you ask. If you ask me, he's not the greatest. The one thing Steven Spielberg did for me as a child to a young adult up until now, his influence over me was Steven Spielberg made me want to go to the cinema. His movies were meant to be in a cinema opening weekend to see his films because they were that groundbreaking and that incredible. I'm talking about the days of true cinema when there was no advanced tickets, there was no pre-seating. Your ass got there early as you can, stood in line, bought your ticket at the window, you ran through the lobby and tried to find the best seats in the theater before everybody else got there. And when you get there, you get chairs, you get jackets and hats and trying to get as many seats as you can for your family, the ones that was running late, you know. Then once you got all your seats done, okay, y'all stay here. I'm gonna go get the popcorn and candy. I mean, those were the true days of cinema. No cell phones, no distractions. It was a better time. Granted, the seats wasn't as comfortable. The space in between your legs and the next row of seats was not very lush, but it was an event. Nowadays, I don't care what you say. The sound is better, the theaters are better, the seats are better, but the experience is not better. And it's because the people that go to the movies, they go with their cell phones, they have no movie etiquette, they talk throughout the trailers, constantly on their cell phones. I just stopped going to the movie theaters. I'm not paying double the price as I used to pay for a bad experience. Not even Steven Spielberg can get me out to the theaters nowadays to enjoy a movie because I know the theater experience would never be like it was in his heyday. But that was the magic of Steven Spielberg, and even him at this point in his life can't save cinema. The other guy, Christopher Nolan. A lot of you nerds and comic book fans are not going to like this part of the discussion, but it is what it is. Christopher Nolan was a nobody. He did his first film, and I was like, oh, that was cool. I like the twist, you know, and how it begins and ends. Christopher Nolan did not get popular until he did Batman Begins. And the reason why he got popular, because all the comic book nerds gravitated towards that film like, wow, this is great. Because you gotta remember, the last one we had was Batman and Robin. So, you know, of course, any other Batman movie was gonna be better than that crap. But what he did, he made a great Batman movie. Don't get me wrong. It was excellent. I was there opening night. And in between each Batman movie, he dropped another movie. So his popularity came from the comic book world. Like all these geeks and nerds who loves Batman and DC Comics adapted him as their new savior. He saved the DC. He saved Batman. So that's why he's beloved. Because I tell you what, Inception, I love that movie. Interstellar, didn't like it. I thought the ending was dumb. Dunkirk, didn't like it. Beautifully shot, don't get me wrong. And don't even get me started on Tenet. You can defend that all you want. That shit is terrible. Looks great. Well shot. That shit's terrible. And I have not seen Oppenheimer yet. I know it's gonna be pretty damn good, but everybody told me the same thing. It's slow, you're gonna fall asleep. I hope it does win Oscars. I think he's deserving of an Oscar because I'm gonna tell you what I love about Nolan. He's the one director that has prestige. He's done it the right way and did not go to film school. He debunked that whole situation because no. I built models. I got my little cameras out. I did it, you know, the old school way. He is self-taught. He's self-taught everything he knows about film. And I admire that more than anything. Therefore, he's up there on my list. But Spike Lee has done something that Christopher Nolan and Steven Spielberg can't even come close to. They can't. When it comes to filmography, you look at the years and the dates of releases of movies. Look at the talent that Spike Lee worked with first. Matter of fact, everybody's seen Jurassic Park. Everybody knows Jurassic Park. Everybody knows Samuel L. Jackson's in Jurassic Park. The whole arm thing falling down on homegirl. Oh, yes, you. Oh, shit, it's an arm. Yeah. Well, before Jurassic Park, there was a movie called School Days. There was a movie called Do the Right Thing. There was a movie called Jungle Fever. Samuel L. Jackson is in all those movies. So that talent pool was started by Spike Lee. And Steven Spielberg said, hey, I like that guy. I want him in my movie. Tenet, movie I can't stand. One-time watch. He got Denzel Washington's son to co-star that movie. I was happy. I love to see a black co-lead in a big-time movie. It makes me happy. But who discovered that guy first? Spike Lee and BlacKkKlansman. So even the greats pick from the greats to make their movies great. You know, that's just the way it is. But I'm gonna show you this chart of the prolificity of Spike Lee. Again, I think when it comes to overall best ever blockbusters, it's hands down gotta be Steven Spielberg. In the nerd era and comic book era, I gotta give it to Christopher Nolan. Even Joss Whedon, you know, the nerds crowned him as the best comic book director of all time. Remember that? Then he found out his ass was a racist and a female chauvinist. You feel like, oh, well, sorry about that. Yeah, his ass is not working now. So be careful who you pick, right? And because you make good comic book movies, don't make you a great director. It just means you made some good comic book movies. When you can jump different genres and different things, to me, that proves you can do that, you know. And a lot of directors choose not to do comic book movies because they feel it's not what I want to do. It doesn't make them less. It's just something that a lot of directors just don't care to do. But check out this filmography from the great Spike Lee. All right, yo, check this out. Let's just start with 1986. She's Gotta Have It. 2 years later, 88, School Days. 89, Do the Right Thing. 90, Mo Better Blues. 91, Jungle Fever. 92, Malcolm X. 2 years later, Crooklyn. A year later, Clockers. In 1986, he dropped 2 movies in the same year. Girl 6, Get on the Bus. 2 years later, He Got Game. A year later, Summer of Sam. Another year later, Bamboozle. 2 years later, The 25th Hour. 2 years later, She Hate Me. 2 years later, Inside Man. 2 years later, Miracle at Santa Ana. I do remember Steven Spielberg dropped 2 joints when Jurassic Park and Schindler's List came out. That was pretty freaking remarkable. He had a blockbuster and an Oscar winner all in the same year. But in that time frame, no other director was prolific as Spike Lee. I'm not talking about dropping sequels. No, these are all original films. And it had great impact on the community, society, and in the culture. And the one thing that Spike Lee did too, that a lot of directors don't do, each of his movies had a hot soundtrack. So getting all the musicians together to put together these great soundtracks each and every year when he dropped a Spike Lee joint. So when his movie was popping in a theater, the soundtrack was popping on the radio stations. He was a cultural sensation. Spike Lee is the man. And now lies the difference. You see, I told you earlier, Steven Spielberg made me want to go to the theaters. Christopher Nolan made me realize I don't have to go to an expensive film school to be a student of film. The thing that Spike Lee did that no other director did was made me want to be a director. And not just any director, an indie director. Have control over your film. Have control, autonomy over your film. And this is how you make an impact on your community and your culture and keep all the rights to your original work. Spike Lee, in my opinion, is the most influential filmmaker of our generation.